Welcome, everybody, to Palestine Bookshelf and to our discussion today of the Sky News documentary on the war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. A few bits of housekeeping while we wait for people to come. This week, I started a Kiva team for Palestine Bookshelf. If you're not familiar with Kiva, it's a micro lending platform. I've been on Kiva since 2013, and I love being able to contribute to people's education, their businesses, whatever it might be. Kiva effectively provides backing in the form of these micro lenders, and then you pair with a local lender. So in this particular case, I've started a Palestine Bookshelf team, and these will be people. We're going to be explicitly focused on Palestinians and their needs. And you'll see when I'll put the link in the chat to the people who we've supported so far, and it's somebody who is needing help with education and someone who's needing some help with some healthcare. And feel free to join the team, contribute if you find these causes worthy. This is not a donation, this is a loan to somebody. They will pay it back to you over time, and then you can use that money to fund somebody else's loan. So I like Kiva a lot, and I would encourage you to take a look at the two people that have been funded from our team so far. Also, someone approached me on social media this week who has a GoFundMe for his family in Gaza. He's pretty close to his goal. I'm also going to put a link to that in the chat as well. So please consider supporting these people, one in the form of a loan, the other in the form of a donation. Take a moment to read about their stories and see if it appeals to you. So I'll put that in the chat now. And I'll try to add that to the description of the video later as well for people who are not able to see the live chat. Oh, that didn't come out very well. Let me see if I can put that in better. The streaming service broke it up into too many different pieces, and I don't even know if it's letting. Yeah. Okay. Well, that that didn't work as well as I'd hoped. In any case, I'm just going to put the two links up, and that way people can just take a look at those two links. Goodness, that didn't work either. All right. Sorry about the technical difficulties, everybody. I'm going to try to put these up correctly, and that way you can use them. And I'll try to delete the rest. Okay. So I had said on the stream on the Stephen Heiner channel that I did not want to watch this. And obviously I can't ask you all to watch it and be prepared for a discussion if I wasn't willing to watch, but I kept delaying it because I don't want to learn more about this horrible person. However, you must know your enemy if you're going to defeat your enemy. And so that means sometimes sitting down and watching and seeing someone's horrible face over and over and over. So let's talk about some of the biographical talking points that we learned in this documentary. I didn't know that he was part of an elite military unit. I did know that his brother Yossi was killed rescuing hostages. I didn't realize that was the platform that led him to start speaking in America. I did know that he had spent a lot of time in America. I didn't realize he was effectively raised in America, and that's why he has effectively an American accent when he speaks English. He makes successive steps. He starts with an ambassadorship to the UN. Then he becomes a member of the Knesset in the 1990s. Oslo happens in 93, at least the first aspect of Oslo. He is running in opposition to this. Rabin is executed by a Jewish terrorist. He ends up winning, running against Rabin's deputy, who at the time is Shimon Peres. So he runs against Peres and he wins by the slimmest of margin, 30,000 votes. I did not know that margin was so close before. But he gets voted out almost right away. When I say right away, within a couple of years. He's always been known as the military guy. He's effectively been in Israeli leadership for 20 years. So, like Angela Merkel and Vladimir Putin, for their successive populations, he's really the only leader many of the younger generation have ever known. And that comes with a certain amount of legitimacy, like it or not. One of his aides, this horrible bootlicking creature, Caroline Glick, characterized, and maybe it wasn't her, but one of his aides said he aims to manage the conflict without resolving it. And that just means he's in a proud tradition of the Israelis dating back to 67 and beyond and before that. That the idea is we are going to tell everyone we're doing one thing and we're going to do something else separately. So we're telling everybody we're not annexing East Jerusalem, except that's exactly what we're doing. And so prior to 2023, he is on charges, and those charges are still running until now, 2019, corruption trials. So he is having to face 3 different trials. And as long as the conflict is ongoing, there are some delays possible for these trials moving forward. Everyone in the media has said, whether they're pro or against him, that these trials will lead to some kind of conviction, will end his political career effectively. And so the another quote from either one of his aides or someone else interviewed, I didn't write down who said it. He will do what it takes to stay in power. And if that means prosecuting a war against the people in Gaza, absolutely. I mean, who are they? His ambition, his legacy, that's what matters to him. And the fingernails outwards from Gaza, he got crushed trying to move into Lebanon. Hezbollah much stronger than they were in the previous engagements, and Israel lost every engagement they've ever taken forward into Lebanon. Hezbollah or some alliance has crushed them. And he now also wants a war with Iran. This is a bigger stretch because Russia is either on the verge of concluding a military alliance with them or has. And so being able to war against Iran is not as easy as it was before the, you could say, the 2022 to 2024 realignment of the world geopolitically. The last thing I would note, he is beholden to the right. He has been a builder of coalitions, but he is beholden to the right, specifically Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. They are the ones who are keeping him in office. And once they lose, once either they don't need him anymore or they gain enough popularity, we're going to get someone worse than Netanyahu. And I think that really bears considering where we are in regards to Israeli society. Israeli society has moved inexorably to the right, in which the peace people in Israel are now saying kill them all. So if you think about it this way, you realize Netanyahu is a moderate. Think through the implications of that. He is a moderate in the coalition that he governs at the moment. And he is a coalition builder. He is a consummate politician. And Sky News, as far as what we have, we're going to have a whitewash of 1948. Not surprising. They use the phrase, the state of Israel was born. They don't exactly say how. They also give us the poor Israel narrative. And as I say, this Caroline Glick character, I think a former lackey of his, bootlicker, and she says, unironically, there have been no domestic ramifications for Netanyahu in this latest period of violence. The either ongoing hasbra of we can lie to the goyim about everything, or just a departure from reality, this has been devastating for Israel. The southern port of Eilat has gone bankrupt. There are hundreds of thousands of Jews who've left, some of them permanently. There are numerous businesses that are in free fall. The Israeli economy has lost 70% of its regular tourist revenue. What are you talking about? There has been no domestic ramifications. So the Israelis want to pretend that this hasn't hurt them at all. They're inflicting this pain and the suffering upon the people of Gaza and the people in the West Bank, people in East Jerusalem. But they're trying to pretend that nothing's happening to them. It is It is as stretched as Israel has been potentially since 49. Tom Segev talks about this in his book about the first Israelis and chronicles the poverty in those very, very early days of Israel before all the sweet American subsidies started flowing in. But America has its own problems. It's continuing to send money to Israel, but it doesn't have unlimited funds. And Israel's not doing well. So I wonder how many of you also had an opportunity to watch this documentary about this horrible person, and whether you, as I did, didn't feel excited about watching it, but hopefully you understand that importance of knowing your enemy. And hopefully you learned some things I did as well. And as I say, perhaps something that I had known but hadn't articulated prior to this documentary is that Netanyahu is a moderate in Israel. He is a moderate, and what will come next? It's some of the same reflection I potentially have as a US citizen reflecting on what's going on in the United States. That President Trump is an agent of chaos. I said that when I did a book review on a book written about him by Bob Woodward over on the Stephen Heiner channel. If I remember, I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. But Netanyahu is not an agent of chaos. So unlike Trump, he does have a clear vision for what it is that he wants to accomplish, and he's very aware of what he has to deal with. And Israel's a much smaller country than America. So I would say in a certain sense it's easier to govern than the United States is. All right. So any questions or thoughts from those who have had a chance to watch the documentary? David said, I don't hate myself that much. In a sense, David, I don't blame you. You know, it's my job, my self-imposed job as the curator of Palestine Bookshelf to watch these documentaries, to read these books. But I am encouraging people to try to deal with it. I whether it's Netanyahu, I'll tell you. Sometimes I was reading. Let's see if it's within arm's reach. I'll reach back here. I was reading Muhammad al-Kurd's Perfect Victims this week. Almost finished. I'll have a review for you all hopefully next week. But there are times I just had to put the book down and say, I can't read this anymore. I'm going to have to take, an hour break. I'll come back to it in an hour. I'll go do some other work. Not because he's narrating horrible scenes of violence necessarily, but as is the case whenever you're putting yourself within the Palestinians' worldview and listening to the narration of their experience, you can only take it for so long. And so I don't want to say it's just as hard, but sometimes a lot of the research for this channel is difficult to get through because you're not simply just processing information and taking it, like you're a computer. You're having to contextualize it not only within the history that you know in general, but for example, I know that Muhammad al-Kurd is still alive at this time, and knowing that I'm reading something that he only finished writing earlier this year, and thinking about how what he's writing now still resonates with and is in communication with and in concert with writers who've come before decades and decades and decades. They're still using the same thought process and the same eloquence. Although I will say I'm astonished at how articulate Muhammad al-Kurd is. English isn't his first language, and he writes incredibly well. I can't. So I'll tell you more about that when we do the book review. But check it out, Perfect Victims, Muhammad al-Kurd, published February of this year. So moving on to less pleasant things. Any other thoughts about Netanyahu? Any questions about this? For those of you who had a chance to watch the documentary, or do you have any questions on, for me, about Netanyahu? I can share this for what I've learned from the documentary, but I haven't researched or read him too deeply. Leo comments, Trump is a wrecking ball. Yeah, maybe 4 wrecking balls, because he's moving. He very much has the move fast and break things tech bro idea, but across his entire skill set is around being a real estate mogul and a businessman, and he's trying to use that skill set for all of the skills necessary to be the head of state and the head of a government. and it's only somewhat successful. And I've shared this on X frequently. There's a very famous quote. It's actually up here on my wall, so I can just pull it down and read it to you. But it's something that I remind myself of. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. It's from chapter 3 of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Trump lives here. Knowing the enemy, knowing yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. So oftentimes that you'll see that with Trump, one step forward, one step back. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle, and that happens to him too. I don't know that Trump always knows himself, but he's never, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. That's never going to be Trump. The idea that he knows himself and he knows the enemy, definitely not the case. Applying this to Netanyahu, I do think that Netanyahu knows himself. I don't think he knows the enemy. And that's why he lives in that middle ground of for every victory gained, he suffers a defeat. And that's because he's part of the denialist school of there's no such thing as a Palestinian people, or as one of his aides said in this documentary, he wants to manage this without resolving it. David asks, how long has he been prime minister? The documentary alluded to the fact 20 years. So I think this most recent term was interrupted by 18 months by Naftali Bennett. And then if you add up everything up till now, I think it's 20 years in total. That's why I was making those comparisons to Merkel and to Putin in terms of length of time. It's not uninterrupted, but overall, he's been in power at least 20 years. If someone wants to look it up and put that in the chat, we can share that as well. Leo asks, who is Caroline Glick? I shared earlier on, she was a former aide of his. I don't know if she was a spokesman or speechwriter, whatever it might be, but it seems that she worked closely with him, and I can only characterize her as a boot-licking lackey. That's what I wrote down while I was taking notes during the documentary. Okay, as a reminder, I put in the chat, and I'll try to add them to the description of the video, a GoFundMe for a gentleman who I ran into on social media who's asking for some help finishing his GoFundMe for his family. He's actually, I think, 93% of the way towards his funding goal. Take a look, see if you'd like to contribute to him. And then Kiva, which is a micro lending platform, I started a Palestine bookshelf team, which it's free to join. And you can decide whether you want to help give micro loans to people who go through all the bank paperwork on the Palestinian side and submit a project for underwriting. And then a local bank matches the contributions we have, and together we make that loan to someone, and it gets paid back over a period of years. And I've been on Kiva since 2013. I can vouch for it being a very worthy platform. So consider going over there and becoming a banker to some Palestinians and being able to help out in a direct way, not in a form of charity, but in a form of, you could say, investment in other people in Palestinian lives. David says, do you know that the USA is an underwriter for Israeli debt? Yes. You have to keep in mind, David, you have to keep in mind, what channel is this? You know, we didn't start this channel yesterday. We talked about this a lot in the Israel lobby and US foreign policy. I actually talked about it more, I think, in my second review, the review for the Palestine Bookshelf channel, because I did an original review on the Stephen Heiner channel, which potentially was a bit snarkier. I just basically read a bunch of horrible quotes from the Israelis. But the the more mature Palestine Bookshelf review looks at what you would call, what you're referring to, which is underwriting guarantees. So the US puts itself forward as the backer for loans so that Israel can take out more loans to buy weapons from us to kill Palestinians, which, as I say, makes me, as a US taxpayer, complicit in the murder of Palestinians. And so I've said before, that's one of the reasons that motivates me in this channel, is to make up for my role in a better way by directly opposing what it is that some of my money is going to fund. Most Americans can be shockingly unaware of these things. Forgive me, I will not underestimate you anymore. David, feel free to listen. Underestimate me all you want, but just remember, as an American, I'm telling you, we are a uh, often, very often, childish, ignorant people. It's not a question of not knowing Israeli history or Palestinian. We don't know our own history. We don't know. You ask people, when was the Mexican American War? When was the Spanish American War? What was being contested? Ask them to name a single battle in the Revolutionary War. Ask them to name more than two battles in the war between the states. Ask them how we got Oregon and Washington. Ask them who got here first, the Spanish, the French, or the English. I mean, this is our own history and we don't know it. So feel free to underestimate Americans all the time. You probably won't underestimate us enough. um, David, it makes all of us complicit, all of us. Yes, David, but I can't take responsibility for everybody else. I can only take responsibility as an American. That's the only citizenship I hold at the moment. And that's what I have to speak about. So if you, as a representative of your country, want to take responsibility as well in a remote way, I applaud that. But I have to just speak as an American, and that's all I can do. Leo, why do you want to live outside the USA? Well, Leo, do I live outside the USA at this time? That's an interesting question because I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location, but I'll tell you more, I think, later this summer. It's one of the things I'm saving to talk about when we hit 10,000 subscribers over on the Stephen Heiner channel. And I'll be talking more about that. But I think I can at least answer this reflectively and just quickly because this is the Palestine Bookshelf channel. And I don't want to talk too much about myself. But in terms of why I originally moved out of America in 2013, it was because I personally wanted to try something different, and I wanted to pursue something that apparently had been in me for many years, which was living in Europe and specifically in France. And it was and has been an amazing 10-year run in Europe and in France. And when you say live outside the US, it wasn't so much a repudiation of America in the sense of, burning my passport. And I visited America every year to see my family. I have my father passed away in 2018, but my mother is still alive. I have three sisters with, I'm trying to keep track. How many do I have? I have at least 19 nieces and nephews. So I have plenty of gifts to bring, treats from Europe, Asia, wherever I'm visiting for my nieces and nephews. So it wasn't turning my back on America, but it was a personal choice for me about why I wanted to live abroad, and I was vindicated. I was right for the reasons that I chose, and I'm very happy about that choice. And again, potentially we can talk more about that on the Stephen Heiner channel for the 10,000 subscriber video if we get there. If we get there, hopefully we'll get there. In the meantime, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers for Palestine Bookshelf. Very respectable. The channel officially started October 7th of 2024. So we are, where are we, about 6 7 months in, and we're going to hit 1,000 subs, and we're moving quickly towards monetization. So I have you all to thank for that. Continue to watch as many of these videos as many times as you'd like. Share them with friends and family, and we'll get to the 4,000 hours of videos watched, which will allow us to get monetized. If we get monetized, we'll be able to pay our expenses. We're able to pay our expenses. The money that's left over can go to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. At the moment, all of that's being self-funded. But thank you for continuing to watch. And when I watch the ticker go up, I still am baffled. I just think, wow, these strangers on the internet have continued to watch thousands of hours of these videos, and I appreciate you wanting to go on this learning journey with me. So thank you for your support in that way, and please keep watching as many videos as you can. That's one of the best ways you can support the channel right now. David says you're almost there. Almost. But remember, that's only one part. So I have to have 1,000 subs and we have to have 4,000 hours watched. And we're at, I want to say 1,750, and we're moving pretty quickly. So we'll be at 2,000 hours soon. We'll be halfway there. So we need another 2,000 hours, which I think we can get to this summer. It'll just depend on what videos catch with people. For example, the Hamas video performed better than the Hezbollah video. And it might be because Hezbollah is a little less connected, even though it is directly involved with the Palestinians in a certain sense. People are less interested in that, and they're more interested in Hamas. I can't predict how the books will fare with people, really. Especially on the new channel, things were so different on the Steven Heiner channel. I'd put out a video and there'd be thousands and thousands of views, but that's because I collected this critical mass of subscribers who are watching that, and not all of them have come over. And for whatever reason, as I said before, there's been less interest in Palestine lately, so there's just fewer people watching the video, so having a lower count. All right. Any other questions about Netanyahu and this documentary? As I say, you're not required to put yourself through it. It's part of what I'm doing is I'm trying to watch and synthesize some of this for you so you don't have to. But if you're willing to get to know your enemy a little bit better in order to understand your enemy better so that you can combat your enemy better, then I would encourage you to watch the documentary. It's linked below. When the stream finishes, I'll try to put links to all the different things I alluded to in the description of the video as well. If not, please just be patient with me. It might take a day or two. Thank you all for taking the time to stop by, and we will see you next week on another stream.